Big week here leading up to the 2023 NFL Draft, opening the Peacock and Williamson mailbag. Questions on potential draft trades. What are the Texans doing it too? What about the Colts in their division? Could the New York Giants be moving around in the back end of round one? And how does the Jalen Hurts contract impact Lamar Jackson? And a lot more on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. That's where most of the questions are coming from on today's mailbag episode. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's start with the quarterback conversation. And there's going to be a lot of quarterback conversation on this episode because probably a lot of the movement in the NFL draft will have to do with quarterbacks. We've got a lot of questions on those teams, especially at the top. But Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
The Odell Beckham signing made me really kind of flip the other way and think, okay, Lamar's going to sign. He's playing GM, wanted to see wide receivers. Maybe he's waiting for the draft to see wide receivers drafted, feel good about it, and he used his leverage, got himself his new deal, and, got himself some better wide receivers, and he's doing his thing in Baltimore, and everybody's good. And, new offensive coordinator and, air it out. Right. Part two, Lamar Jackson 2.0 in the NFL. And then the Jalen Hurts contract, $51 million per, $255 million total over 5 years for Jalen Hurts. And I think that strengthens Lamar's position a little bit too, even though it sounds, according to reports, Ian Rappaport laid out, a past $250 million offer with, close to similar guarantees. Is he able to up that a little bit to best Jalen Hurts and know where the market is now? And it would seem to be easier to do a Lamar deal now with a fresh new quarterback contract than before. So I still feel good about it, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
But
with him returning to Baltimore, you mean?
About returning to Baltimore.
Yeah,
I feel better there than before. But we've got multiple questions about how it impacts it. What is your read on this whole situation now with, first Jalen Hurts and then Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it more and more. And first of all, I commend the Eagles. I always think that they're such a smart front office. Getting ahead of Herbert, Burrow, et cetera, I think is going to pay off for them. They want to get this done as soon as possible.
Question, Matt. Because he was drafted in the second round, It forces them to move earlier.
True.
It ended up helping the Eagles to know that they don't have the fifth-year option. They can't wait around. They see the Lamar saga. They saw what it was like with Kirk Cousins. They don't want to play it out that way, and they want to get in front of these other contracts. So did the second-round pick, because we always talk about, hey, team's going to move up to get that fifth-year option for a quarterback at the end of round one. It feels like it helped the Eagles that he was a second-round pick and not a first-round pick.
In this instance, especially because the first-round picks ahead of him are really good, and then he's going to compete with them dollars-wise. So, yes, this is a side tangent because I would definitely want to get back to Lamar and Hurts, but the fifth-year option is getting a little overrated. I mean, especially for other positions, not quarterback, because some of these guys, bring it back to the Steelers, Williamson, TJ Watt was a really late first-round pick, but because he was so good, his fifth-year option got really expensive because he went to Pro Bowls and things of that nature. So there's some of the fifth-year option rules aren't as exciting as they used to be.
And it's less likely if you're not sure to pick up the fifth year. And we saw how the Darnold fifth-year option went. That didn't help anybody that he had a fifth-year option as a quarterback. And if you don't know that you want to pick up that fifth-year option for your quarterback after 3 years, that means you don't. And that's
you probably don't.
Not a good sign.
Jordan Love's like the only one I could think of that we just don't know after 3 years. You know what I mean?
You know what I'm going to do here? This is weird. I'm going to plug in a mid-question, and then we're going to finish the Lamar stuff. But Michael has a question, and just since we're on fifth-year options, and I think this is pertinent here, Michael says, is everyone sleeping on Jahmyr Gibbs going in round one, the Alabama running back? If he is an Eckler, Kamara type, isn't that worth it? I would still say no to running backs in the first round, but with the fifth-year option conversation, I think one of the best positions to have a fifth-year option on is running back right now because you can go 4-year rookie contract, fifth-year option, and then tag him if you want to, and never spending more than $10 million a year on a running back. Go 6 years. You don't have to give him that second contract, which is really the place that hurts you with running backs is giving them that big second deal. So it goes from a 4-year rookie contract to a 6-year rookie contract. And so I could buy the argument that it's better to draft a running back with the last pick in the first round than a quarterback in some cases, obviously, unless that quarterback hits.
No doubt. I mean, I've been saying that for a while. I think tight ends are the same way. Guys with cheap franchise deals, you can get 6 years out of pretty cheap at these, bottom tier positions, so running back's the king of that. I mean, Saquon Barkley, he's gone to Pro Bowls. He's been great. They 5th-year option him. They tag him. They send him on his way. They get 6 good years. Of course, there's some injuries in there. He is a running back after all. But that, to me, is the better argument for a first-round running back than, again, this could be a whole show. And overall, don't draft running backs in the first round, because if you do, that means you didn't draft a corner. You didn't draft a tackle. And you definitely don't want to be shopping in the free agency aisles for left tackles. You can find a running back. Kareem Hunt's on the open market right now. There's probably 5 others that can carry the ball for you.
Oh, yeah.
Financially, you're right. And I do think Gibbs has a chance to go in the first round.
Yeah, I think he definitely does. He's a second running back. I think Bijan's definitely going to go in the first round. And so, and at the end of the round, the end of round one, the end of every round, you usually get the better teams that won more games and have fewer holes and might say, we can plug in a running back. It's a lot better than trying to build from starting with a running back. But I will say, Giants haven't won a whole bunch of games with Saquon Barkley. Don't draft a running back in the first round. 5th-year option's nice, but franchise tag, you got that too. So yeah, I would still say no. Don't draft a running back in the first round. But as far as the 5th-year options go, it's just as good for a running back because it's probably tight end's the best. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Tight ends the most underpaid.
They're so cheap, right.
Maybe in the NFL with what they can do for you in the running game and the passing game, and their dollars haven't caught up like some other positions like wide receiver.
The only issue is usually running backs in year 1 and 2 are better than tight ends in year 1 or 2. They start to hit their stride later, where backs come in, help a good team. Let's go throw Jamar Gibbs on the Bills or Bengals or whatever and run this thing back. Weird question, because I do want to get back to Lamar and Hurts. They both happen to be Alabama guys. Or compare Gibbs coming out of school to Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry, both of whom were very early second picks. I know those two are tremendous NFL players, but if they all came out of school the same time, and we don't know Chubb and Henry are going to be as good as they are, and they're all projected to go 25 to 45, which is where those two went, I assure you Gibbs will be the next one. I bet Gibbs goes ahead of those two because he's a weapon and they're runners.
Yes, the passing game
rules,
what I mean? And that's the argument for both Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs is their value in the passing game.
Right.
But if you
I'm not implying Gibbs is a better ball carrier than Derrick Henry, folks. I'm just saying as prospects, I would rather use the first-round pick on Gibbs than one of those two elite ball carriers.
So this is kind of what I've gotten to an argument with some 49ers fans with the Christian McCaffrey thing too. It's just like his value is so much in the passing game that you don't want to give him 20 carries and run him into the ground, because then he's no good to you in the passing game because he's hurt. So it's like,
right.
You still want him to be sort of a committee back. And then is it worth a first-round pick or worth all this money or all this trade capital to go get a running back if you're not going to give him 20 touches a game? So
100%.
It's a circular argument, and in the end, it always, to me, comes up with you can find good running backs elsewhere. There's going to be some other really good starting backs later in the draft, and attrition is the main reason why. So if you can tell me that you're going to get 6 years with a 5th-year option, and that and even a franchise tag, and you're going to be healthy for 6 years, then it's probably worth it. But that's just rare. It's rare. It doesn't happen. The team that drafted the Panther, the team that drafted McCaffrey, the team that drafted Fournette, the team that drafted Zeke, they won a lot of games with Zeke. The team that drafted
like Najee's interesting, because I don't think Najee's great. I mean, I'm not super impressed with him, but he's such a volume guy, and you have such a young quarterback that if I run him into the ground for 6 years, kick him out the door, it probably was worth it.
Maybe, but was he that
maybe
much better?
He's not that great.
Was he that much better versus what you could have gotten the first round with that pick versus a replacement running back? And that's where the argument gets dicey. And almost all these high running backs their team didn't win with them. So what are you ultimately doing if you're not winning football games? Okay, you got a cool fantasy football draft pick when he wasn't injured. Lamar, let's finish up that.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so here's the one take that I've kind of thought more about is, okay, everyone thinks this is great for Lamar, and it is for this reason. The numbers are huge, so, hey, I'm worth every bit of Hurts. I want the same amount per year. Okay, that's totally reasonable, but it's yet another quarterback contract that isn't fully guaranteed. The Ravens have a better leg to stand on. That the Browns are the crazy ones here, Lamar. You've been a free agent now for a couple months, and nobody offered you a fully guaranteed deal. The league, except for one team, just isn't doing that. Let's reconsider. Let's do a Hurts-like deal. The numbers are still huge, but nobody's offering you a fully guaranteed deal. That can't be a sticking point anymore,
Yep. And we can go a little more, but we're not going to go fully. We're not going to 150 million. We'll go 180. We won't go 250.
Yeah, exactly. And the owner doesn't want to put that in escrow, and any quarterback can get hurt. But we've seen some quarterback contracts since or around the Watson time, and some of them aren't as good. Daniel Jones and Kyler and Russell Wilson. But this one just implies the league isn't doing this yet, Lamar. We're not giving you a fully guaranteed contract.
Next, what's going on with the Texans at 2? And it's going to be draft changing, whatever they decide to do. But what about the Colts at 4? What's it cost to go up just a little bit if they need to get their quarterback? New York Giants, could they be moving out? And which of the teams, the 12 teams that have never won a Super Bowl, will win that Super Bowl first? Today's episode of Peacock Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Tons of draft props right now at FanDuel. So much fun to bet on those draft props. It's looking more and more like Bryce Young is getting a little bit closer and closer to climbing up to that #1 spot in the he's already overtaken CJ Stroud on the sports books. And looking at FanDuel, it looks like it's even more of a favorite now as we get closer and closer to the draft. You could bet on the first pick, the second pick, the 10th pick, first running back taken, first wide receiver taken, first defensive player taken. So many fun draft props. And of course, Major League Baseball now every day, all summer long. And it's the best time to join America's #1 sports book because FanDuel is offering new customers a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 back. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. You sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if that bet doesn't win. NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs. No better time than April. The month of April, I love it. I think it's the best month of the year. Weather getting better, and so many things in the sporting world, including football Christmas, which is the NFL draft and Major League Baseball. And I'm a big baseball guy, so I love that's coming all summer long. Don't miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball.
BP, you know what a week from today is? Draft day eve.
Draft day eve.
It's close, buddy.
Yeah, it's getting close. That's a great segue to what could happen just before the draft. We've got a question here about Aaron Rodgers and when that thing's going to get figured out. And the NFL Draft Dodger says on Twitter, true or false? The Rodgers to Jets trade is completed between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. next Thursday, hours before the draft. So he's talking pre-draft, before whoever it is selected at #1 to the Carolina Panthers, Rodgers becomes a Jet.
There always seems to be big news that day, leading up to, draft day eve up until kickoff of the draft. Oh my gosh, the Texans are going to take Mario Williams. I mean, there's always something there, or Tunsil's bong mask or whatever. There always seems like something happens that day that nobody saw coming. Curveball comes. Maybe. The only thing I'll fight you on that is maybe it happens after the Jets make their first round pick, or they see who's there in the round 1. Maybe that's a sticking point. We keep hearing Green Bay wants a first rounder. I don't think they'll get it. But maybe if the wrong people are on the board for the Jets, they say, fine, take the first rounder. Let's get this over with. But here's my problem with the whole thing is it seems to me Aaron Rodgers likes a lot of attention and is very media savvy. We'll just say that. does he want to get overshadowed by the draft, or would he rather do it Saturday night when the whole world's talking about it all weekend? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm big false on this because I think the next leverage play is that 13th pick, and it kind of has to come to it and happen. So it happens maybe on the clock, or it happens. I would think it would happen before the second round, so they can get those Jets second round picks.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I'd be pretty upset if I don't get any of those second rounders and day 2 goes by. You know what I mean?
So I'm going to say false on that because I do think it happens after the draft starts.
Maybe it happens Friday at noon.
Right. Yeah. I would say
you know what I mean?
24 hours, and then before the second round gets going, that's probably the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Schefter reports Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets. And, you know, some of the round 1 luster's a little bit off, and we're talking about Rodgers leading up the draft. And I can see that. I think it happens soon, though.
JDS asks a two-tiered question here, and really it's a three-tiered question because we got multiple questions about what's going on with the Houston Texans at number 2. JDS says, what would it take for the Colts to move to number 3 if Stroud is there, or if he's gone already? So either way, just what's it cost for the Colts to move up 1 spot if they want to get a quarterback, thwart any other trade attempts, trade up with the Arizona Cardinals from number 4 to number 3 in the draft? So this is what it cost a few years ago for the 49ers in 2017, or for the Chicago Bears in 2017 to move up 1 spot. It wasn't 4-3, it was 3-2, but it's to get a quarterback, moving up 1 spot. But it was 1 spot higher too. So it was 3-2. It cost the Bears their 3rd round pick. I believe it was like number 67 or something in that draft. Their 3rd round pick that year, their 4th round pick that year, and then a future 3rd, which I think was a pretty late 3rd. I think it might have been a comp pick even. So 2 3rds and a 4.
2 of those picks end up being Alvin Kamara and Warner.
Yes.
Your guy's linebacker, yeah.
That third, so it was Fred Warner was the pick in 2018 that they got, and Alvin Kamara, which were better than either pick that was pick number 2 or number 3 overall.
Right, which is great.
Alvin Kamara was actually, the 49ers traded that pick because they had the pick right before from the 3rd round. They drafted Akella Witherspoon, who became a future Steeler, and then they traded their other 3rd round pick that they got from the Bears, 67, to the Saints, who drafted Alvin Kamara.
Interesting. Yeah. A little tidbit. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. I love how all of this just comes together. Pretty amazing. And then, ended up with Fred Warner as well in the 3rd round the following year. So it's going to cost something similar. And if you look at chart value, that's basically, a 3rd round pick plus. But when I look at the leverage that might be there for the Colts and the Cardinals and how this thing plays out, when I looked at this, I do think the Cardinals can get the Colts' 2nd round pick, which is 35.
Yeah, maybe.
But I think they can give something back to make sure they get that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, because the Cardinals have 2 3rd round picks already. So the Cardinals could say, here, take our 2nd 3rd round pick, which is like 97, and we get your 2nd round pick, which is much higher than the value of going up 1 spot. The 35 overall would be too much. But they're going to say, look, we got other teams, and we might be able to get a 1st rounder anyways. And so you got to pony up that too. But we'll give you our late 3rd to make you feel better about it. And if you look at chart value for what the 49ers got in 2017, and you look at the difference between pick 97 and 35, pretty similar chart value. So if I had to project a trade, I think it would be the Cardinals send pick 3 and 97 to the Colts. The Colts send back pick 4 and 35, and who knows, maybe a player or something to kind of, make everybody
bounce it out, a future pick or whatever.
Yeah.
So I get asked this question a lot. Like, why wouldn't every team move back 1 spot for a 5th rounder? I mean, I'm talking even like when on day 2 and whatnot. Like, hey, I'm going to still get the guy I want. I just got something extra for free. Well, especially in this case at the top of the draft, doing so means you turn down other offers. So it can't just be like, I'm sold, I'm going to take Will Anderson. I'm moving down 1 spot. Anything I can get is great. Because really what you have to weigh is, but Tennessee is going to give me 3 first-round picks, and I don't love Will Anderson that much. I can pivot off him, So, and all of a sudden, the target that everybody wants gets picked, and you don't have that leverage anymore. You can't just trade down, then trade down again because Stroud's gone. So people don't always think that way. Sometimes they just think of it through the Cardinals lens of, I can move to 3 to 4, get the exact same guy I wanted. Why not just take a 3 and be thrilled? Maybe if you're only dealing with one team. So I think you're right. I think that's about the price. And if you're the Cardinals and you can do that and you can get that early second somehow with a little bit of sugar thrown in, now you're talking. Otherwise I want future first. I would much rather trade from where the Cardinals sit. I mean, are they going to be married to Kyler 2 years from now? What if he gets hurt again? And I wouldn't. And Will Anderson's fine, or Carter, or whoever, or Phillips. I'd almost rather move the 10, 11, 12 and get the Bears type of haul. You know what I mean? Or 90% of what the Bears got.
So, no doubt. So that's why you're able to get more for the Colts to move up, because there is the threat of that. And for the Cardinals, especially if what happens with the Texans that is being rumored, if they go and draft the best non-quarterback, well, that's the guy you kind of wanted to get at 3 or 4 anyway. So it makes you more likely to say, well, let's go all the way back to 11 or 12, right? Like it's easy. So the threat of that makes you get that second. And if the second is worth a future first to you anyway, I think it makes you feel better for the Cardinals. And then you can still deal. And that's part of my conspiracy theory here with what goes on at the top of the draft, Matt. We're going to get to that next, because I think that could be not the end for the Cardinals.
Because I got a curveball to throw at you too about this.
Okay. Oh, good. I love those draft curveballs. And by the way, that's what's great about the NFL draft. Is there's going to be a ton of curveballs, and it is not going to go chalky. It never does. And minds will be blown on Thursday and Friday and Saturday. Thanks, everybody, for making Peacock Williamson your first listen every day. Shout out to all the everydayers tomorrow. We've got Keith Sanchez. He was in the booth with us for our mock draft special that's going to be released tomorrow. So to celebrate, we're going to bring Keith of Locked On NFL Draft onto the show with us here, talk draft. If you have any more draft questions for Keith or us, we'll probably hit some of those and just talk about what could happen at the draft and tease our Locked On Network mock draft special. It's an extravaganza, a 6-episode series going through the entire first round, plus every team's pick that didn't have a first rounder, their first selection in the draft. All the hosts, the college hosts, so many people involved in the network. It's a lot of fun. Matt and I, again, hosting it, and we had a third man in the booth with us this year, which was Keith. Locked On NFL Draft, so it was awesome. So he's going to be with us for the special and on tomorrow's episode of Peacock and Williamson, so stay tuned there. Okay, Matt, so here's my theory of how it all goes down. And yes, I do agree. The second part of the question here was, if you're the Cardinals, what do you prefer, moving down a little bit or moving down a lot? Depends on how much they like the player that's going to be there. I'm the Cardinals. I'm getting 3 first-round picks to go to 11.
I went future first.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're able to get that too, that's, pick 35 this year with the exchange rate for future years. That's about what the value would be for a next year's first.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So you get that if you're the Cardinals moving down. But because of the Texans, what they do at 2 changes a lot for the Cardinals, makes your pick more valuable. But at the same time, this is my conspiracy with the Texans. The Texans can make it easier for themselves to move up later, not
from
draft
12
quarterback at 2. So if you're the Texans, you go, let's say Will Anderson. That's what I had in the mock draft. If it goes Bryce Young 1, you don't love Stroud. And here's the thing. If you don't love Stroud, you're probably okay, because if you don't go quarterback, if you're the Texans, you're allowing your division rival to potentially get
the guy you don't love.
Yeah, but you don't love him. And so
right.
And it guarantees that or it doesn't guarantee, but it makes it likely that they get the guy you didn't want anyway. And it makes sure that, and you make sure that they don't get the other guy you really like at quarterback that you're hoping to get at 12.
Which could be Richardson.
You're really controlling the Colts if you believe that they'll go get Stroud.
So, interesting. I like that.
And you make the Cardinals pick less valuable to stick. You make them more likely to trade because you took the player that they would have drafted at 3, or if they move down to 4. So let's say it plays out this way, and Will Anderson's the player. I think he's the best non-quarterback. He's the player that they would look at, that the Texans would draft, that the Cardinals would have drafted. So Cardinals say, well, we're for sure ready to move. They get the deal. They end up with that second-round pick from the Colts. They go down to 1 spot. So now C.J. Stroud's the 3rd pick. So now the Cardinals are open for business, but now they're at pick 4. And now they still don't have that guy that they were as convicted on drafting at 3 or 4 because the Texans just took him. So now the price for the Texans to go from 12 to 4 is a lot cheaper than it would have been because of what they did at 2. And so
there's not as many people calling, and right.
And so
I like the way you're thinking here.
So what if the Texans now, because the Cardinals already got partial value for that trade down, now if you're the Texans or the Titans, you don't have to give up as much because they already got a little bit for 3, and they got one of those future firsts in a second rounder, right? That value. So now you're able to get up for maybe a 1 and a 2 or a 1 and a 3 instead of multiple first round picks in the future. So what if the Texans, by not drafting the quarterback at 2, really pull the strings on this whole thing? The Colts get the quarterback they didn't want anyway, and now they're able to go up to number 4 for less than they would have been able to go up and get number 3 or number 4 before, and go get
Will Anderson and
go get the quarterback they really liked and they didn't want the Colts to get, and when they wanted to get, which could be Anthony Richardson, or they just sit back in 12 and draft, Levis or whatever.
Yeah. But that's what I did in my mock was Anderson Levis, but I didn't have any trades.
It would be pretty amazing string pulling by the Texans if they would be able to make it easier for themselves to get the best defensive player and the quarterback they wanted in the draft while controlling things between pick 3 and 4. Because that would be pretty amazing if they ended up trading up to 4 less than it would have cost any of the teams that would have gone up with the Cardinals at 3, because the Cardinals already got partial value in that high second round pick.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, they have a ton of power. And right now, the Texans have the most draft capital in this entire draft. They have the most picks, and their picks next year are useful too, and they've got plenty of those as well. So they have all the firepower. They have all the cards. And I do think Bryce Young, they would have ran to the podium for, and they're not going to get him. So now let's plan B. Maybe we have a deal on the back burner with the Niners for Lance or something along those lines too.
Right.
There's some other options besides these draft guys. But if they do, if Levis or Richardson, I don't think either one of those is their 1, but maybe they're their 2. You know what I mean? And they don't mind playing against Stroud for the next decade. Yeah, he's a good prospect, but okay, he goes to the Colts. We can live with that. We don't love him. We like Richardson better. You could get the 7 easy. You could get the 4 easy as you laid out. I like it a lot. I mean, I think that makes all the sense in the world. So I think Anderson's going to be the pick at 2.
Would you even be willing to trade within your division and allow the Colts to come up with you at 2, and then just draft whoever's better available
Richardson at 4 or whatever?
Like if you like a quarterback at 4, or if you like,
you probably don't get Will Anderson though,
right? Or if you like Tyree just as much as Will Anderson,
yeah. Or you're comfortable with Carter or whatever.
And allowing your division rival to get a quarterback of the future potentially, like that's a ballsy move.
A defensive coordinator coming from San Francisco that went to Bama, I think, wants Will Anderson. You know what I mean?
That's what I think too. Or how about this? You want to make sure that that team doesn't go up and get your guy. What if you trade with the Raiders instead?
That's what I was thinking. Maybe you go to the Raiders. Or
doesn't get in your division, and ensure
right.
that the Colts don't have their pick of number 1 or number 2 on their board.
Or trade with Tennessee, and then you're sitting there with 10 and 12. You can move up and get anything you want. And
that's the other thing, because Tennessee is the other team that is also in your division. Like,
how
about that for balls? If you are the Texans, you draft Will Anderson at 2, and then you see the Colts and the Titans get future starting quarterbacks.
That's crazy.
How far does that put you behind by not doing it, and you allow them to get their quarterbacks if those quarterbacks turn out great? So you have to be really convicted in this whole thing about you want to go defense and you don't love the quarterbacks.
One thing I will combat that with is I don't think you can go into the year with the 2 quarterbacks that are on the roster. Like, you can't not do anything. I mean, that's a tough sell. Davis and was it Heineke now? Somebody like that. Like, I'm sorry, but if it was Jimmy there, I can live with it. I mean, then I'm making a Lance move. I got to do something. I can't sell hope to this fan base that has been so miserable, or to the players in the locker room, if I leave this draft saying we're trying to pick first overall again for the USC guy. You know what I mean? Like, we've been doing that for a while, guys. I've seen that show. It's not fun.
But that's the best scenario for the Texans, is if they load up, get more talent at 2 and 12, and then get Caleb Williams next year. That's way better.
It's very possible.
So,
very possible. Or the SC dude. I mean, they're probably going to pick high no matter what.
The other thing that could happen is you don't get your quarterback. Both your division rivals do in this draft, and you still can't get Caleb Williams next year. Mm-hmm. And so you're sitting there. Like,
but they have the Browns first rounder next year too, I think, right?
Who they have to get the number 1 pick, or they have to, or the number 1 pick has to belong to a team that's not going to draft a quarterback.
Right. And
And even a team like
he might be so good that the pick, like since he was not trading out of Joe Burrow no matter what, the Colts aren't trading out of Luck no matter what.
They had literal Peyton Manning. They had one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and they're like, nope.
No, this guy's too good. Right.
After Andrew Luck, and like you think about a team like the Cardinals themselves, they're going to get extra picks, so they could maybe do a move like that, or build around Kyler. But after an injured season with Kyler, maybe ownership's not sold on Kyler anymore. Would they even trade out of that if they got the number 1 pick next year?
I think they take the stud. I mean, if this guy or the NC guy are as good as everyone says, I don't think anybody trades out of it. You know what I mean?
So
I mean, I don't have many quarterbacks I wouldn't move on from for that type of prospect, a Luck-like prospect. Last thing, I know we're up against it because we were talking Colts to Cardinal trade, 10 minutes ago or whatever. If I'm the Colts GM and I call you and I say, let's swap 3 and 4, and I want DeAndre Hopkins for Stroud, I could see that happening.
Yeah.
I could give you I'm giving you my second and next year's second. Okay. You know what I mean? I'm throwing to Pittman and Hopkins, and Stroud's very happy about it. And
makes a lot of sense.
I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
Good stuff.
Really quick, there was a question about the New York Giants, and it is from, if I can find it, Ryan on Twitter says, do you think the Giants are in prime position to move down, possibly completely out of the first round? They have a need for multiple players, and it doesn't seem like there's a guy who fits where they're picking at 25.
I'll be honest. I've done 3, 4, 5 mocks now. And every time they come up, it's always like, well, there's 5 guys I like. None of them are slam dunk home runs. I've put Brian Branch there. I put Osiris Torrance, corners. I mean, they play with a ton of secondary guys on the field. The interior of their O-line is rough. But if I traded down 10 spots, I'd probably get one of them as well. I'd end up with John Michael Schmitz and be just as happy or whatever.
Right. Is there a big difference between Zay Flowers and
Addison or
whoever else you would get 10 picks later at wide receiver? If that's the way you want to go. Maybe offensive line, if there's somebody there might be a drop off.
Maybe.
I think it's likely that they would absolutely be listening to offers there. Who's coming up is the question.
Teams that need a lot should trade back. They need a lot. I hope they don't look at it like, oh, we're 1 player away. We were in the playoffs. Like,
we're a guard away.
Right. But I mean, I think they'll address the interior O-line, but you could do it at 33 just as easily.
Last question. Short answer, Matt. We need a 1-word answer. Which of the 12 teams that have never won a Super Bowl before will win one next? This question from Zachary. I'm going to read you off the teams. You tell me which team it is. Arizona Cardinals, Atlanta Falcons, Buffalo Bills, Carolina Panthers, Cincinnati Bengals, Cleveland Browns, Detroit Lions, Houston Texans, Jacksonville Jaguars, Los Angeles Chargers, Minnesota Vikings, and Tennessee Titans have never won a Super Bowl. Which one of them wins one first?
Part of me wanted to say a team like Carolina that looks like they're so far away, but they're in the NFC. They're not fighting Mahomes. Maybe 3 years from now, their quarterback's a stud, and wow, they're one of the best teams in the league. I'm going to go Bengals slightly over Bills. I mean, Bengals and Bills to me jump to the forefront because they could win it this year.
I put the Chargers in there, but it's tough in the AFC. So I'm gonna give you a dark horse one. How about the Lions? Easier path in the NFC. They're building something.
Split the
there.
Difference of the 2 ways I was thinking there. You're right.
Got a bunch of first-round picks. Yeah,
not bad. I mean, they'd be happy winning a playoff game.
Get to the playoffs.
They've done that too. right. Brutal.
All right. Fantastic questions.
Amazing. There's 12. There's 12.
That's a lot, right? I kept reading them off. Like, all these teams, and there's some good teams in there. So it could happen this year. Thanks everybody for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft, Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes. Of course, we will be launching our network-wide mock draft special. It'll be right here on the Peacock and Williamson feed tomorrow, both on video and audio. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Matt and I back tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.